Hi, my name is Brian, and I'm the High Pop Professor. And today, I'd like to do a VR for both Brent Richards and baseball cards, and also John Mangini. And so, the past couple days, John Mangini has released 2 or 3 different videos talking about, well, how the hobby has gone to crap, and other various shenanigans involved with the hobby that basically he sees things happening in the hobby that he doesn't really like to be a part of, although he still likes collecting, but he feels like there needs to be a distinction between collecting and how you can still do that and not be a part of the awful hobby things that are happening at the same time. And so, yeah, I wanted to react to that. And I also wanted to react to the awful news, but the sad news that Brent Richards and baseball cards has decided to stop making content and putting videos on YouTube, and that's a tragedy. I'm really sorry to hear him say that. I'm really sad to see him go. I've always appreciated his content, and for me, I wrote a pretty lengthy comment on that video, and I'm at risk of kind of repeating myself here, but elaborating on it. But that's kind of what this VR is for. And it's especially bittersweet for me because I felt like he was a kindred spirit with me, and I feel like there aren't that many content creators that sort of specialize in that 90s space. And so, I really enjoyed being on the same panel with him, helping John, 3D 80s kid, decide to curate his collection and which 90s sets were the ones that we found to be our favorites. And so it's going to be really sad. Now, I understand, though, life happens. This is a hobby thing. This is not, life and family and your career, your job. Lots of things come before the hobby. And it's time consuming. It is, you're trying to find, he's able to crank out, 2, 3, 4, 5 videos a week, it seems like. And, I'm sitting here with my 1 or 2, and I'm pretty happy with that. I don't see that really getting any higher or lower. Now, that being said, it is summertime pretty soon. And so when I'm not teaching class every single day, yeah, there's some potential for more frequent uploads. So that's fine. But I get it. The point is, yeah, it might be time, if he has to prioritize his time, his energy, his efforts elsewhere, I completely understand. My only hope for him is that I hope that this is not a forever goodbye, a forever departure from the hobby. I suspect I hope he will continue to collect. He will still continue to enjoy the hobby. And I know I'm not alone when I say that if someday, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years later, if I get that notification bell that there's an upload from one Brent Richards and baseball cards, I will click on that video and watch it so fast. We will always welcome you with open arms back into this hobby, Brent. And so please understand that don't think that this is a forever decision. I hope you don't believe that. And to that effect, one of the things that John Mangini was talking about was sort of analyzing the YouTube hobbyist content creator. And that sort of played into a little bit when Brent was talking about with his channel and subscriber counts and views and content and the creation of all this stuff. And really, I felt that one succinct VR for all of this was actually somehow appropriate, because I do think it's related. And so let me break it down for you. So this channel of mine, for example, I call myself the High Pop Professor. And the reason I call myself the High Pop Professor is that I enjoy collecting cards from what some people call is the junk wax era. However, those cards are not junk to me. They're very special to me. And so I prefer to call it the high population wax era, or high pop. And of course, my favorite player being Greg Maddux, aka the Professor. That, and I feel like I kind of know a lot about those kind of cards. So I don't actually have a degree in baseball cards. But so I call myself High Pop Professor. And the whole idea behind this, if I go to a show, if I go to I went to the National last year. I can't make it this year to the National, but still, I go to the National. I went to the Philly show a couple times last year. As I walk around those shows, big shows, hundreds of tables, I walk around and I kind of see what John Mangini is talking about. I see it. I see overpriced wax that's there, right? There are breaking tables, breaking pavilions. There are repackers. There are, basically the Fanatics Casino is there. You've got, whatnot sellers and scammers, and you've got all this stuff that's just completely irrelevant to the way that I like to engage in the hobby. And so for that reason, when I'm walking around, I can make it through like an entire show in one day. I can do it. And I can basically, because mostly I slow down and cruise and look by those showcases, but for the most part, I'm looking for 90s baseball. That's it. Okay, maybe some autographed Diamond Kings in there too from the 80s, fine. But mostly 90s baseball. So when I consider that, maybe, I don't know, 50, 60% of them are ultra modern, and you've got 30, 40%, they're not 30, maybe 30% vintage, and you have a significant chunk that might be TCG or other sports or non-sports. It's a relatively small chunk, and out of those hundreds and hundreds of tables, maybe only 6 or 7 of them are going to have the kind of stuff I'm really interested in. And I will spend a lot of time at those tables. I'll talk to the dealers. I'll get to know them. We'll shoot the breeze. I might show them the cards I brought with me and see if they're interested in buying them. That's how I made a pretty big sale at the National. And by the way, I saw the same seller again at the Philly show later. So we caught up and talked there again. But my point is, the whole big hobby, that's mostly not stuff I'm interested in, right? That's Jeff Wilson, right? That's what his channel, his hundreds of thousands of subscribers, that's the lane he occupies, is the ultra modern, the hot 5 cards of the week, right? They'll tell you how to invest, all this stuff. The 90s lane is a slower lane. We're not the mainstream, high-end, ultra-modern, the new, the shiny, the sleek. We're not that. A lot of the other channels on YouTube are vintage collectors. There's quite a few of them. Awesome community, great guys. But I'm not that either. And so if I'm not ultra-modern, and I'm not vintage, well, that leaves me as, and of course, this is my logo for my channel, I'm the third googly-eyed, goofy Hydra head that is neither the sleek, intimidating ultra-modern or the vintage one. I'm the goofy 90s guy, right? And so the hobby lane that I occupy is different. And I know that there's not going to be hundreds of thousands of subscribers for a channel that features that. And I'm okay with that. I really am. That's fine. And so I think that we can do both things. I think that I've decided to sort of manage my expectations. Getting a big subscriber count, it's not really a goal of mine. It's great if you find my channel and you like to watch my stuff. Awesome. I'm happy to have you here. Thank you. But at the same time, I acknowledge that it's very niche. It's not going to appeal to the wide swath of big, new collectors out there. There's just, by the numbers, there aren't as many out there who are looking for that same kind of stuff that I'm really, really into. And that's okay. That's part of why I made a channel in the first place. There weren't that many occupying that lane. I thought, hey, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to talk about these. I'm going to talk about hobby issues. I'm going to talk about 90s cards. I'm going to be sort of educational about the way I do it. And, I'll show off cards too, yes, but I don't make pickup videos. What I tend to do is make videos about cards and then show a card or two that exemplifies, hey, these are some cool things about those cards, by the way, here's one card that exemplifies this issue in the hobby or whatever. And so it's kind of an educational thing. Another reason I do that is sort of documentation. It's for me, it's almost a video journal of my journey through the hobby. And it's also documentation, for a future generation. Maybe someday my kids or grandkids can, watch this collecting journey of mine, and, they'll get to see what kind of things I thought was really cool. I don't know. And, we're experimenting with this. No one really knows what YouTube's going to turn into in 20, 30, 50, 100 years. We're just kind of turning the camera on, hitting the record button, and see what happens. So, what I'd like to do is I'd like to discuss a couple of things about that hobby negativity stuff. And I would like to also show a couple cards in honor of Brent Richards. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera around and do that. And while we show some cards, we'll talk about some of these hobby negativity aspects, and give my thoughts in the process. Okay, so starting off with this little showcase for Brent, we're going to start with two sets that I know are very special to him, and there are two sets that are very special to me as well, 1990 Leaf and 91 Stadium Club. And so I picked out some of those, a couple Nolan Ryan cards, a couple more Jeff Bagwell cards that I thought exemplified really a lot of what kinds of cards I know that are special to him, but also special to us too, to me. These are really cool cards, and so I just wanted to show a few things, in honor of his amazing channel, and again with the hopes that perhaps someday we will not have seen the last of Brent Richards and baseball cards in his uploads. So as we talk about some of these cards and show some of them, I wanted to respond to Mr. Mangini and a couple of his topics he was talking about here. One of the things he was discussing was how a lot of the hobby terms that we have here, well, they tend to be very negative. He said junk wax, and it's one of them, and I already addressed that before. I prefer high pop wax. It's fine. But I think the reason why a lot of those terms exist is just because, it is very helpful. It's useful to name certain things. If we say off-centered, we know what that means. We know that, it's going to be, it's not well-centered. Everyone knows, and it's very quickly, everyone sort of knows what that means. Now, it's true that for different people, that some terms mean different things, and we have to maybe define that. So, for example, another issue that we had, love this Frank Thomas, by the way, and this, of course, is probably the most iconic shot of Nolan Ryan in a 90s card. So, if we were to talk about, one of the things he mentioned was about quality versus quantity. And boy, that's a really, it's a pretty big can of worms to open up there, because you talk about quality and quantity, you could define those by almost any way you wanted to. The way that I would define the whole debate about quality and quantity, it's not whether a card is quality or whether you're acquiring quantity. To me, it's a continuum. It's like if you had $100 to spend on cards, what kind of a collector are you? Would you diversify? Would you buy a single $100 card? Or would you buy like two $20 cards and three $10 cards and four $5 cards and a couple of $1? Or would you buy 100 $1 cards or $25 cards or what? I mean, or would you buy 1,000, 10-cent cards? What would you do, right? And in reality, I think all of us probably are somewhere on that continuum. I don't think that many people would buy 1,000 10-cent cards. Some would, certainly. But I think you're going to find there are some cards that are a couple dollars, like these, beautiful Stadium Club cards. Now, this is cheating. This one's actually the Stadium Club Dome set, this Manny Ramirez rookie. So it looks like it's a 91 Stadium Club, and it kind of is, but it's not really. So yeah, I mean, if you love cards and you love cardboard, yeah, I mean, maybe there is that $100 card that you really, really, really want, and it's like the most important card in the world to you. I get that. That's fine. And you should pick that up if that's what makes you happy. Absolutely. But I think the most collectors are somewhere in the middle of that continuum. And I think they probably would like to have, little column A and little column B. We have some higher dollar cards, and that's kind of how I would define quality. Some people would consider, condition tiers, like, oh, PSA 10, that's quality, and anything other than that's not quality. It's like, well, for some, yeah. I think my definition is more of a strict monetary value. When I think quality and quantity, my mind goes to, well, how much is that going to set me back if I'm picking up, these kind of cards or whatever other kind of cards. And so that's kind of where this is. And I just love these Leaf 90. Leaf 90 was so premier for when it first came out. Now, of course, nothing is, as iconic really as this Frank Thomas rookie. Oh man, this was the card. Okay, yes, the Topps no name on front. I get it. That's also really iconic. But come on, look at this. This is classic. This is so good. Love this card. 300. Look at that. And so you look at these cards. Leaf 90. If you wanted to collect a bunch of Leaf 90 cards, here's a beautiful mint copy of this 90 Leaf Frank Thomas that I picked up for probably $25 in this CSG Mint 9. Not that you can tell, but that's what's under there. Okay, so you've got, the best card in the set, basically, or at least the most notable, the most famous one, but then the other ones still might be a couple, maybe $1 or $2, for the other stars. But so maybe you want a small quantity, and you also want some nice quality there too. So like I said, I think most collectors, when they think about it, probably are hybrids. They have a bit of both in their collections, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Something else that Brent Richards really enjoyed his collecting, he did a couple of great videos about Diamond Kings. And I know I've done some videos about Diamond Kings too. Most of mine are autographed. This one is not, but that's okay. But you know what? This one is. And this guy, ooh. There's a cool card for us. Something else that Brent Richards really liked was Jeff Bagwell. And so I said I was going to show some Jeff Bagwell cards. I mentioned that in a comment, and so that's what we're going to do. We'll look at these Rookie Sensations cards. And this reminds me too about quality. So condition quality, forget PSA grading. This isn't the kind of cards you would necessarily send to PSA. Well, unless they looked like they were in mint condition. These are really highly condition sensitive cards. And so you might not think about sending a card like this into PSA, because why would you? I mean, this Jeff Bagwell's probably like, $2 or something. Frank Thomas might be $5 or maybe 10, But the fact is, this is one of those cards where, condition becomes a very important quality of it. To wear a PSA 8 for something like this, I mean, a lot of issues, dark borders. The centering is usually off all over the place. The foil has some errors that happen with it. The back edges are usually disastrous and way off-centered. This one actually has reasonable edges. This is pretty good condition, all things considered. The back centering's a little thin on the bottom there, but But yeah, this card in a PSA 8's probably $40-50. But this card sold at least a couple months ago in a PSA 9 for $400. So really highly condition sensitive and really tough to find an exclusive condition like that. And if you got a 10, I'm sure it would be in the thousands. So, but really cool cards. I love that these are, the two bests from this set, I think. Well, Pudge Rodriguez is in there too, so we can include him in there. Also, just Nolan Ryan, another really cool. I love these leaf gold, really cool ones. Yeah, they call these gold leaf moments. Most of them were young rookies, leaf gold rookies. For the first couple of years, they had those, but Ricky Henderson had one also for these moments. And then I got a few other Jeff Bagwell cards to show, but before I do, I wanted to show a Dufex card just because. Just because I love Dufex, and I know that he does too. Brent Richards loves some Dufex. But let's show some Bagwells. Here's a beautiful Topps Traded rookie card. And it's interesting. This particular rookie card, the Studio, this is the first ever year of Studio, Donruss Studio. And this is probably his most expensive rookie card, graded in a PSA 10. It's the most condition-sensitive one that he has because of these dark borders. I mean, the corners are just impossible. Centering wasn't that easy either on these things. And so if you find one that's like really, really nice, not that they actually give 10s out. It's a very, very minuscule gem rate, but hey, we're talking about gambling in the hobby. If you want to take a gamble and roll the dice, yeah, go ahead and send it to PSA. This one's got a surface issue on there. You can't see it, but I would never send this one in for that reason. But still, man, these 90s cards. Speaking of Leaf and Leaf Gold, here's like a Leaf Black Gold from 92. Tied for the first parallel ever. 93, here's a beautiful flare. The first year they actually made these ultra premium cards. Man, that's so cool. Speaking of ultra premium, man, these select certifieds, the peel on there. I started to peel a corner of this one off, but left it for some practice later. And of course, I know we talked about 91 Stadium Club, and we'll talk about that again, but really Stadium Club always had fantastic imagery, great photography, good action shots in there. Just love it. This one's 99. But there was a 91 Stadium Club that I did not mention before, and that's this one. Beautiful. Autographed rookie card. Jeff Bagwell. Just a beautiful card. Absolutely love it. And one last one to go out with here. Don't want to spend all day on this, but it's an honorary Diamond King. It's not really, it's a triple play Gallery of Stars, but it's, it's beautiful. I love it. So in summary, my closing message here would be, yeah, there is negativity. It exists. But it only, it depends, how do you want to define some of those terms, some of that terminology? How do you want to interact with it? Because we have choices on how we want to choose to interact or not interact. And yes, Mangini's correct when he says that, we are all kind of in the same hobby boat here, and one thing does impact all of us. Yes, it's good to stay informed. I 100% agree. But also, we can dwell in the lane or the lanes that bring us the most joy. That's what this is about. This is about doing what makes us happy. And that's what I encourage everyone to do. Because if we're in this and we're not really having a blast, if we're not having as much fun as like Nate, what I'm talking about, Nate Topps 85401 here. If we're not having that degree of enthusiasm and fun with this, what are we even doing here? Right? So, in closing, let's make sure we are keeping our priorities straight. Let's make sure we're fitting in the most important things we need to fit into our lives first. Let's go ahead and interact with the hobby in the way that makes the most sense for us. And most importantly, have fun. And hopefully, share that fun through some YouTube videos with the rest of the hobby. And Brent, if you're still watching, please do consider coming back sometime. Thanks for watching.